says, and I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped to spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole household, knows that I am in chains because of Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. It's true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, for they know I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives when they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my change more painful. But that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. So I rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice. I'll go back to verse 18. But that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. So I rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice. Just for a minute, I want to help you just drop in your spirit message that your attitude determines your altitude. Your attitude determines your altitude. Here you find, we've all been here where we find ourselves in situations where we encounter people. It just, no matter what happens, their outlook on life just seems to be negative. And even if you find yourself in their presence for a period of time, you'll actually start to pick up some of those habits. I shared with our class on Wednesday night in a Bible study, is I found myself at work starting to associate with folks. I started with this positive outlook in January, but by here it is by April, I'm starting to speak just like I'm starting to look at the place that God has deposited me to minister to these people with the same. I've changed my disposition. I've allowed them, the things that they deposited into me have started to alter what my thinking was from the beginning. It's my position now in Arlington High School. For those who don't know, I've gone back there to minister and serve in the classroom. It's been a blessing. And I started with this belief that God is using me to help these young people, to help, so it wasn't about me. I was able to get back hands on. And so I had this positive outlook in the beginning. But because now I'm in around other people who have been there since the beginning, since August, their outlook was totally different. They were looking at it from a negative standpoint. They started to talk about all of the failures and all of the struggles and all those things. And so I went from this positive outlook about my mission, my purpose, of the reason God believed God had placed me in that atmosphere, in that situation, to a point where I've allowed now other people to start to change my disposition, to change, what I believe about what my purpose was. So now I find myself sitting in the same room, doing lunchtime with our team meetings, and I'm chiming right in, I'm co-signing and joining right in the conversation. Y'all know exactly what you're talking about. I can't believe that either. And then I'm starting to think back to when I first started in January, and now here it is, April, and within just a short period of time, I've lost my focus. My attitude has changed. And people of God, we have to be careful sometimes who we allow to enter into our situations and our circumstances and our relationships, because sometimes the very people that we allow in that space will taint us or cause us to lose focus on the very purpose that God has given to us. And what I love about that is that quickly, because of the Holy Spirit God placed in me, that I left the meeting one day and I shared with some of them that in the meeting there was a conversation that put me in a negative situation, and it really quickly brought to me a point where I started to feel like I had to defend myself. And I'm telling you what I love about the Holy Spirit, the Word of God, is He quickly moved me back in alignment with the thinking that I originally had from day one. And as I went to my classroom and I knew the enemy was trying to cause me to change my disposition, he was trying to get me off track. He tried to get me to lose my focus and change my attitude about my purpose for being at that place. He even had me starting to contemplate not coming back and moving to something different. But God said, no, hold up. Remember why I put you there from the beginning. And even though your situation looks dim, even though there's some hardships and there's some struggles and obstacles, you got to stay on purpose. Your attitude has to be one that believes and trusts that whatever the situation is, I am going to still be able to let you do whatever it is I've called you to. And what that helped me with then is as I'm sharing with you, is even in the midst of all of that, I found myself back in my classroom, and immediately I went to the Word. I put some positive spirit in because I put the Word in. I brought up a YouTube of a great man of God preaching the Word of God, brought it up on the computer, on the YouTube, turned off the lights in my classroom, and I had a whole praise and worship service during lunchtime and totally changed my outlook all over again. And what I'm trying to get you to understand is that even in your darkest place, even in the dimmest place, you can still live according to the purpose God has called for you. And so what I love about this message, if you look at this text, Paul is in prison, but he's still serving his purpose. His outlook could be, now be honest with you, if we were in prison, think about what your outlook on life could be. Some of us are facing persecution. Some of us are facing being targeted, character being put down and talked about. And all of those things take away your focus, and it causes you to not want to serve, not want to be where you're supposed to be, not want to live in accordance to what God is calling for you. But I want to encourage you to understand the real purpose that you come to serve is chasing lost souls. Don't forget that you're a true disciple of Christ. When you give your life to God, you said, I come in alignment with the plan that you have for me. I come in alignment with the vision, the heavenly vision that you have for your people. And that is for us to live in the kingdom, to experience ultimately living in glory. And I want to make sure you don't lose sight of what your purpose is in this life. And so Paul, even though he's found himself, because he was being obedient in what he was supposed to be doing, he was being persecuted by those who didn't line up with what he believed. So they're trying to block him from doing what he's been called to do. And many of you know there's going to be people that don't always line up with your thinking. But you got to stay on focus. You got to stay on purpose. You got to stay on mission. And I want to help you. Sometimes it may not be outsiders. It could be the very people that live in your house. It could be the very people that live on your job, that work on your job. It could even be some of the folks you hang with on a regular. When you try to invite them in to the kingdom and they get opposition. And sometimes they'll even start to try to persuade you. Okay, let me help you. Be honest. There's some people that you know, you cool with, y'all talk on a regular. And they cause you sometimes to get off track because you're supposed to be at Bible study, but they've invited you to go kick it on Wednesday night because they got a special going on at the club. Just being honest, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. Listen, being honest, you know where you should have been, but you were somewhere totally different. There's somebody that I challenged you to reach out to, and you've been so busy with your personal agenda that you haven't even called me. Just being honest. And listen, without tripping, I'm trying to make sure that you understand the enemy is going to do his job. He's going to continue to put those things in front of us that cause us to get off track. And those things are blockers. All right? And so what I love about Paul in this is that he could have been depressed. Look, he could have been down. He could have been stressed out. And he wasn't just in prison, people. But he was in prison. He was facing death. But if you look at the word, what he says. Look at what he says. Listen, Paul's location situation doesn't stop him from fulfilling his purpose. And his outlook is one that is positive. And so he's talking to the people. He's talking to the people of Philippi. He's trying to get them to, first of all, he's encouraging them. He's telling them, listen, you've been doing a great work. And even though I'm not there with you, continue to be obedient in your purpose. Continue to be obedient in spreading the good news. He's doing his job even in his dark place. He's serving his purpose even though he's in an oppressed position, even though he's in a situation that looks dim and dark and dirty. It looks like there's no way out, there's no hope. He's still fulfilling his purpose. He's still believing that no matter what his outcome, no matter what his end looks like, his outlook looks like, he's going to still fulfill his purpose. And I want to make sure you understand, sometimes you're going to be in situations that are uncomfortable. Sometimes you're going to be in situations that cause you to be in pain, in suffering, sacrifice. But you got to stay on purpose regardless of what the enemy is trying to do in your life. And I love it because Paul said, it don't matter whether I die or live, I'm still going to be blessed regardless. He said, I know if I go, if they kill me, I'm still going to be blessed. And if I live, I'm going to still be able to bless people because it is my purpose. Understanding what your purpose is. Your attitude, people, was what's going to determine your altitude. It's going to determine whether you go forward. It's going to determine whether you lift up and become part of the kingdom. Sometimes it is the only way you can make it through is having a positive attitude, because the world won't never let you have positive attitude. And it's not the purpose of the enemy to let you think you can make it. He wants to keep you low. He wants to keep you suppressed. But your outlook has to be one that no matter what happens in my life, I can still make it. I can still be a blessing to God. I can still minister to some lost soul. I can still pray for some lost soul. I can still encourage somebody. I can still invite somebody into the presence of God. I can be used regardless. Your purpose is to reach out to somebody who don't know Christ. If you're a true believer, that is your purpose for serving in the kingdom. Every one of us has a charge to do. It is not to get mixed up. And so even though we're going through our own struggles of life, even though we're going through our own hurts and our own losses, our own persecutions, we have to understand that regardless of what we're dealing with, God is still in control. And Paul is in a position where it looks dim, dark, hopeless, helpless. He's still looking positive. His head is up, shoulders are back, and he's serving purpose. He has an attitude of positive thinking. You have to think and believe. Listen, if your attitude is negative, who's going to come along with you? If you're a child of God and your attitude is one of defeat, who's going to come along with you? If you're a child of God and you're a true believer, listen, if we are true believers in Christ, and Christ is raised and resurrected and defeated death and is living in victory, if we're connected to him and we are now supposed to be renewed, living in the same victory, experiencing the same victory, then we're walking around with our heads tucked low, our shoulders hanging low, our hearts heavy all the time. Every ounce of us is always in a negative disposition. Who's going to come along with us? So as we think, I'm just trying to help you, because the real truth is the enemy wins when we do that. So how you defeat him, people? How do we defeat the enemy? We have to change our disposition. You have to change your disposition. Listen, I love it because Paul understood one thing, that his location didn't determine his position. His location didn't determine his purpose. And his location wasn't going to change his purpose. Even in prison, even in a dark place, even in the lowest point, Paul he was encouraging. He was still praying. He was still witnessing. He was still teaching. He was still worshiping. because his attitude was one of service. It was one of purpose. And I want to make sure we don't get so caught up in ourselves dealing with the struggles of life that we lose sight of the one who has the power over everything in this world. Even the devil. Even the enemy. And so Paul is an example of not just the positive side of living in life, but it's also, he's an example of the reward for living in obedience. Because if you know the story about Paul and how he even got to the position he was in, he was one who, as he said in the word, he said, if anybody had a reason to boast and live with arrogance, he did. Because during this time, people, he was one who happened to be equipped properly with Jewish tradition. He was entitled because of his relationship with Pharisee. He knew all of the laws and all of that. He could, in his dealings with the way the things were set up, if anybody had a reason or to live or walk around with overconfidence, he did. But he stayed home because of his relationship. He understood exactly what Christ was all about. And I love it because his testimony for us is how we go forward in life. Our attitude is going to determine our altitude. How high we go in this life. How high we move in this life. I learned yesterday at our celebration. It was the greatest learning piece for me in my entire life. Now I've been in celebrations. I've been in many small. That wasn't what got me. What got me was when you know really nothing. You know a person, but you don't know their purpose until you see. It's a gone to a whole nother level. Listen, and Paul got that. He understood that it didn't matter what they did to him in his physical state, because he knew that he had already sold into God's vision, and he knew that his connection with Christ was already going to move him to a place that nobody else could ever imagine. He knew he was going to experience the very things that Christ had already talked about. He just was waiting on his time to check out. And so even though he was in prison, and even though he knew the plan and the plot was to destroy him, he still looked right in the face and said, it don't matter what you do to me. It don't matter what you do to this. I know that whatever happens to me, I'm still going to go to a better place. I know there's some stuff laid up for me that's going to benefit me that you can't even imagine. And I want to help you understand that, listen, God is so good, but you ain't even experienced truly what he's going to do for you in the next life. But you can't get there if you're not truly serving the purpose he's given to us right now. The only way you get the benefit of experiencing the true reward that he has for you is to stay focused on your purpose. And I saw it. I saw the lives that were touched. I lived that moment. I saw the purpose that came to life. I saw the mission that came to life. It wasn't what somebody told me. I saw it. And I had young people come up to me and tell me how they were lost and how they were broken and how they were hurting. And it was through a relationship with someone who was a true servant, who had stayed on purpose, that it caused them to be changed. And I want to make sure we don't get so caught up in our own hurts and our own struggle, our own low place, our own dark place, that we get caught off guard and we lose our focus on our purpose. We have to keep an attitude that Christ is who he said he is. He is the Savior. He is risen. He is not dead. He is living at the top, not at the bottom. And I want to make sure we live at the top with him. So when you walk through this life, friend of mine, dealt with hurt, dealt with pain, dealt with loss, dealt with struggle, dealt with being humiliated, dealt with being separated, dealt with being disowned. All of those things were emotions and hardships and headaches and all that kind of stuff he had to deal with. But he stayed on purpose. If you talk with him, you would have never known it, because his attitude was one of service. His attitude was one of purpose. His attitude was one of encouragement. His attitude was one of prayer. His attitude was one that took him to a whole nother level. It was a place I couldn't even imagine being. I sat there and watched it before my eyes. I couldn't believe it, because I knew that person. I didn't understand it until God showed it to me. He said, this is what it's about. Touching lost souls, changing lives, feeding people, not physically, spiritually. And Paul gets it. We got to get it to people. There are some of us right now, because God is calling to use you in a way that you can't even imagine. We have to change our attitude. We're focused on the stuff that's in front of us. And God has it already. Listen, that can't be your focal point. Because listen, God has control. And even if it hurts physically, it can't touch your spirit. You have to have an attitude of confidence in the one who created you. You have to believe. That means you have to have a faith that's unmovable. He talks about this faith of a mustard seed. Mustard seed. Because something so small comes so big. You have to have that kind of faith, that no matter how bleak your situation is, believe God's that he's going to move your situation out to a point where no matter what your location is, it's not going to change your position. It's not going to change your purpose. And if you live on purpose, people, if you live on mission, if you stay focused with a positive attitude, the places God's going to move to take you through, and the people's life you're going to change is going to be unbelievable. And I told you this. You know I'm not about membership. I'm about soul searching. I'm about changing lives. Listen, we're going to be the kind of church, we're going to reach folks that nobody else will even go talk to. We're going to be the kind of people, we're going to get our hands dirty, because that's what is called for this ministry. That's what God is called. Our purpose, when we talk about a whole new way of living, we talk about understanding that it doesn't matter where you've been laying. It don't matter where you've been rolling. My focus is on changing your whole life. Understanding God has called for you to be something greater than where you're selling. I believe in him. Do you believe in him? Do you trust God? Do you believe he can take anybody and change them? If you don't, look at me. A man who was broken and almost ready to give up living in this life. Except for God. Sending a man who I didn't even know he was sending. Speak a word to me that would change my life. And get me back to a purposeful living. That's what we're about. We have to understand Paul gets it. And I love it because he's a true servant. His chains. I love it because his chains to Christ. Your chains are connected. If you're going to be chained to anything, don't be chained to your job. Don't be chained to your family. Listen, don't get me wrong, I love you. There's only a certain He is the one that even when you think life is over and you forgive him, he'll sense to console. He is the one. You don't even know how he lives. Somehow he'll provide and make provision for you. He is the one that even when you don't even understand your own life, he'll give you clarity and lift you up to a point where your self-esteem will change. He is the one that when the world tries to destroy you, tries to take you out, he is the one that will cover you. You have no cover. He's the one when your family turn their back on you, he'll come alongside you and hold your hand. He's the one that when your job gives up on you, downsize and cut you out, that you won't miss a beat. He's the one that if you continue to pray, push your way forward, he'll be everything you need him to be. He's the one that you want to keep yourself connected to. I want to make sure you don't get it mixed up. That no matter where you're placed, no matter where it looks dim, no matter how dark it looks, no matter where you're located, I don't care about that. You have to stay connected to the one who has the authority and the power to give you everything that you need. God is who he said he is. Jesus is no longer dead. I want to make sure you don't think he is. Some people are sitting there looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. I want to help you understand that God has already raised him up. And he didn't just raise him up, he raised him up with all power in his hand. And he stretched him out to a point where he allowed people to observe him giving up the last breath. But I love God because he didn't let that be the final chapter. And you know the story. Some of you know what I'm talking about. They laid him in a tomb and thought that it was over. They were so worried about him getting back up, they rolled a stone in front of him. And I want to make sure you understand the true power of God. God said, that ain't nothing to me. I'll send an angel to move that stone out of the way because I need him to be free to fulfill his purpose. And even in the darkest of the tomb, no lights, no candles, stones moved, and Jesus walks out so people can see the divine power of God moving and having his way, and the people coming and seeing him and they couldn't believe. Your Father has the authority to move mountains out of your way. He has the authority to do all that he said. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. I'll be with you always to the very end. And I believe it in my soul. So you can't get caught up in your imprisonment. You can't get caught up in your dark place. You can't get caught up in depression moments. You can't get caught up in thinking about your current financial hardship or your broken relationship or your health situation. That will lock you up and lock you out of what God is calling for you to do. You got to look it in the face and trust God. You got to look. I know it's hard. I'm not telling you it's easy. But I believe in the power of God. If he can raise up Jesus from the dead, if he can move mountains out of the way, I know he can fix my situation. He is who he said he is. Paul believed it. And he believed it to a point that it didn't matter whether he would kill him or not. Do you believe him? Do you have an attitude? There's nothing wrong with having an attitude. I'm not talking about that kind of attitude. There's nothing wrong with having an attitude. As long as your attitude is changed to believe in what your purpose is. I believe in every one of us. And if we truly commit ourselves to giving our heart and soul to Christ, everything we say, everything we do, it ought to be glorified God. No matter what comes out. He said, he said, everything works together for the good. Everything. And I believe it. So you know what? Listen, and I'm going to close, I promise you. But you can't listen, we are so focused on making sure things are good all the time. But Paul teaches us. He said, when you get chained to Jesus, you got to expect some persecution. So trust in God. He has the power to fix it. And just because you're not chained to Jesus and you're going to go through some persecution, you still we're exempt from hardships. We're exempt from dealing with the Lord. We're exempt from being persecuted. If they persecute Jesus Christ, what makes us exempt? What makes us exempt? And the only thing that I want to show you and encourage you is to understand that the best gift he gave us was the example. Paul gives us the example that it doesn't matter that we're being persecuted. The real truth is how we look at it positively. And no matter what comes from, I still am going to serve on purpose. I'm going to stay on mission. And if I do what God has called me to do, they can't touch. It don't matter if I'm in jail. It don't matter if I'm in hell. Wherever he went, he preached. I want to help you. Jesus went down into the depths of hell. Preached his tail off. Captured death. Kicked him in the rear end. And came back. You are chained to the one who has that kind of power. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe he has the power to fix your situation? Would you stand with me? Today, somebody today is sitting and thinking, hey, yeah, I hear you, Pastor. I hear you. But you don't know what I'm doing. You don't know where I've been. You don't know what I'm facing. But what I'm trying to help you understand, it doesn't matter where you are. You have a purpose. You were made for a designed purpose. God made you with a plan in mind. Every one of us to be connected to the kingdom. And ultimately to live in the vision of God. So if that's true, no matter what comes up on you, you can beat it. You can defeat it. If you believe. So that comes with an attitude. A positive attitude. Your disposition is connected to the one who has the authority. You lift your hands with me. Dear Lord God, we thank you for just being who you are in our life. We thank you for your power, your strength. We thank you for Paul and the life that he lived. And he models for us, Father. No matter what our position is, no matter what our location, that we are designed to still fulfill the purpose that you have given to us. So we believe that you have the power to let us live free even in our bondage. That we can live free even when we're facing persecution. That we can be lifted up from our dear situation. Lord God, we know that you're able to do all things. So with hands lifted, we come before you right now. Asking, let your word go forth today. To resurrect itself in those who don't believe. Those who've been struggling with their own issues of life. And remind them that the purpose that you have placed in them is to go out and spread the good news. Is to tell the dying world that there's still hope in Jesus Christ. Lord God, we come before you right now. With hands lifted, believing and trusting in you. There may be one under the sound of my voice that don't know you, in fact. They desire to come into the fold of being part of the kingdom. Lord God, we ask that you will let their heart step out on faith today, trusting and believing in you. There may be someone who's been part of the church home, Lord God, but for whatever reason, decided to unite with this one. Lord God, we ask that you will let them step out, trusting and believing. Let today be a whole new way of living for you. We offer this prayer to you in your Son, Jesus Christ.